for me, I'd like to have an interactive session here, primarily because I don't really know what is sustainability for each of us. It's probably a little different. Now, I have a few questions. What is sustainability? What exactly is environment? And what is a smart city? And why is it called a smart city? I think that's where most of us are wondering, do we have the right answers out there? Now, let me start with what is a smart city. The concept of smart city actually started in around the late 90s, where information technology per se, is wielded to address issues of urban network and flow, which predominantly include old and also new areas. It's not like it was just the old concern areas that were addressed, but also we have a couple of new emerging concern areas in a social setup. The digital upgrade to our built-in legacy is our smart city. So when you have a digitalization of all the different services and the different aspects that run a city or an urban infrastructure per se, we call it a smart city, which is envisaged with a noble purpose to reduce traffic, save energy, and improve public safety, thereby contributing to a sustainable environment and its sustained development. In simple terms, I think this is what a smart city is about. Now, coming to what is sustainability. In one of the conferences I'd been to, people kept talking about sustainable development, Article 21, of the Rio protocol. Then we had the also the Earth Summit. People kept talking about all these articles, which I also when I teach law. But then what's the point about talking on sustainability without understanding what it means? Sustainability is three-pronged. One is it allows an individual who happens to be a part of an ecosystem. Now, what is an ecosystem and what exactly is an environment? The sum total of all the biotic, abiotic, and energy aspects is your environment. So when we talk of environment, we talk of environmental activists. We're talking about what? Are we talking about the biotic, abiotic, and the energy components? All these have to be balanced, and all these have to be catered to intrinsically and extrinsically, meaning from within and from without also. Now, that is an environment for all of us which we've read. But when we talk of environment, for example, many concerns relating to environment, pollution, for example, environmental pollution. We talk about pollution on one hand, we talk of development on the other. Now, where does pollution end and where does development begin? Or where can you balance them? The balancing act is sustainability, where you allow the sustenance, that is the survival of the environment with its living, non-living energy components as is, and also allow for a superseding development, meaning where you allow the sustenance or survival of the environment along with sustaining livelihood for the people. Animals don't need a livelihood. That particular component of the environment which needs a livelihood is just us. That is the humans. So we believe, because evolutionarily we are advanced, we believe, though of course 83% of our brains are of course intuitive. It's only it's only 13% to 14% of our brains which are actually the ones which have the power to think. Okay, so for just that little percentage of the brain that we believe we do have, we want a livelihood. To sustain a livelihood in the face of a developing society or in a social setup, we want to sustain. So the three things that sustainability talk of are survival, sustenance of one race, one human race, and the sustainability of the environment per se. So when we are able to balance these three, that is what is sustainable development. So this is something which most of us fail to believe or understand, because we believe sustainable development is making sure that we do the development by not compromising on the environment for our generation or the future generations to come. That is the definition given it for sustainable development, right? But sustainable development of what has not been addressed. So this is something I would like to say. And now for going ahead, what are the significant factors that need to be addressed with reference to smart city, and what are the significant factors? I'm leaving it for you to answer. What do you think are the significant factors that need to be addressed when we talk of a smart city? Cleanliness, traffic, sanitation, amenities. Okay. Now, the first thing we talk of is an urban expansion, right? Probably the architects here will be able to tell you that when you have a city planning, which is very, very important, especially when you're looking at an urban infrastructure, the city planning needs an urban expansion aspect to. Fortunately or unfortunately, most of our Indian cities do not have a city planning which is allowing future or futuristic growth. So when we talk of converting Vizag per se into a smart city, we'll have a lot of challenges, lot more challenges than when you want to convert, say, for example, a village city. Like, for example, when Chandrababu Naidu had to build Madhapur and make it a high-tech city, it was that much more easier. Because there was nothing there, and it had to be kind of begin from scratch. So there was a scope for planning what comes where. There's a scope for planning a public amenity, like you said. There's a scope for planning the sanitation. There's a scope for planning which building comes, what is a green building, what is the balance in the ecosystem, can we come up with a natural pond, how do we best use the Durgam Cheruvu there, or how do we come up with the artificial pond or a lake, and make sure that there is an aesthetics in that particular area and make it a high-tech city, and then also provide for commute within the city, because all this is feasible. Similarly, in Singapore, it was easier to build Singapore, which was otherwise a British colony till 1965, because there was nothing there. But if you go back to the old Singapore, that is in Geylang, or for example, you go to the predominantly Malaysian occupied areas of Singapore, or you go to Chinatown area, it's even there, it's very difficult to change the infrastructure there, because it is something which is ingrained in the city. People who've been living there, whether they were dock laborers or not, have lived there for so many more years, even before they got independence, and they do not want to change their lifestyle. So this is not an issue of social change, or dynamics of social change is not an issue which is confined to Indian cities alone. Any country, any city you take it. It's easier to develop a barren land the way you want it, the landscaping gets easier, than convert an already existing infrastructure into a smart one. Now that is the biggest challenge, I believe, that we face as far as Visakhapatnam is concerned, that is urban expansion. The second issue we have, which is very pertinent from Vizag's point of view, is the climate change aspect. Climate change and urban expansion are the two aspects which have a huge impact, not just on the smart city perspective, but also on the relevance of sustainable environment design for a smart city. So these are what AECOM, as most of you are familiar with, are trying to deal with it, because you already have a city which is growing here and you're converting it into a smart city. How smart can a smart city get is the biggest challenge that we as the citizens of Visakhapatnam have to face. Now, what are the features of a smart city? What are the smart uses of environment in terms of renewable energy, implementations of principles of sustainable development, and primarily the regal recourse and redressal mechanisms. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, the laws, as I shared with some of you here, in India are rampant, are extensive, are very, very clear. The major issue we have is the enforceability of the law. And why is there a concern for enforceability of the law? One, because there is no prosecution for most of the wrongs. Most of us believe, though we've picked up the common law from England and said we're going to say tortious liability and criminal liability. These are the only two liabilities everybody believes. There's no personal liability we believe in here. Number one. The second thing, we talk about tortious liability, we quickly respond and go back to the Civil Procedure Code. We do not want to believe that your tort, for example, a nuisance, is not just a tortious liability, but it also attracts criminal liability. Now, is it a private nuisance or public nuisance? Lawyers like us who will keep discussing and trying to figure out depending on who's our client. Okay, so if I have my client and I want to save him and I want to say just let him pay a couple of dollars, couple of rupees to the party who's actually claiming, I'll say yeah, it's going to be only a civil liability. But if the client doesn't pay me my fees, I'll convert into a criminal liability. So this is how we have been dealing with law in this country, honestly, and on the record. Okay, now I think that's one thing we need to change, because environment per se, especially when you are heading for and embracing the idea of a smart city, which is a citizen initiative, it is not a state initiative. I believe we need to believe in the concept of prosecution against every little wrong done against the environment, adopt the CRPC 125, all the sections of the CRPC and the IPC, and you have a lot of them that cater to environmental crimes. So I've been advocating it the last 6 years, saying environmental wrongs are not wrongs, these are crimes, because you are committing a crime against what does not belong to you. If you look at the basics of a civil wrong and a crime is something you do against somebody else with a malified intention. So there's malice, and you're doing it against somebody else. Wrong is something you do without your knowledge. But when you know you're not supposed to do something and the intention is your personal gain, if there is a malified intention, there is malice, no questions asked. So I rest my case as far as environment and it to be dealt as only anything done against it to be dealt as a crime and not just a civil wrong is concerned. I am very clear that anything you do against environment should be liable for prosecution. There is no civil liability arising there. There is strict liability, absolute liability, and a criminal liability nonetheless. So that's my personal opinion as a Vizag. Now, I've been discussing about Visakhapatnam as a smart city. Somebody asked me this question long ago, and then they said, if you say a city of destiny, what do you think? I'll just share a few things. I've done my homework. When Ravikant asked me to speak, I did my little bit of homework on how to talk of Visakhapatnam as a smart city. Clean drinking water. So drinking water for D. There is the biggest issue. Water scarcity. We do not have water. No continuous water supply by the municipal corporation. These are all the complaints we hear. Visakhapatnam speaks. The people speak. We have a couple of sources of water. Those of the geology experts, we've been discussing with them in different conferences, different talks and different workshops in Visakhapatnam the last couple of years. We have a lot of reservoirs around, Megadrigada, Gambiram, Mursalova, all these reservoirs. Now, we have these reservoirs getting their water either from Tadipudi or the other reservoirs. And then, how much can these also cater to? Now, the result of urbanization here is we have a lot more intake than we have supply. Now, how do we break the ice? I think the best solution we have is a sea, right? Come up with a desalination plant, use the technology, it's a one-time investment, go ahead, it's an entrepreneurial idea. People have done it people have done it in Dubai, people have done it in the Sultanate of Oman, you can do it in Visakhapatnam too. Come up with a desalination plant which is effective, convert your salt water into drinking water. And you are also creating an employment opportunity there, and that could probably be one of the best ROIs, return on investment will be very high if you're going to get the grant for such a plant, which would not be a problem at all. And you're also helping the state. The second concern we have is E, electrical supply. Yeah, we have non-use of renewable energy and high use of conventional energy in this state. Now, why so? Because we have the reverse. We have hydroelectrical power, which is generated, and we have the AP electrical board, all going good. But then when there is a disruption in the electrical supply, we talk of the state not doing their job. But are we doing a job? How many of us are aware of the pilferage that happens across the electrical poles here? So for this, I have a small solution. renewable energy using non-conventional energy sources. For example, the solar energy sources. We have different technologies. We have, depending on the size of your home, you have domestic solar plants, you have commercial solar plants. Start using it. Visakhapatnam is turning out to be hot. It's no longer the nice climate we had when I was a little girl. So use that. Use your tidal energy. The wind speeds are pretty high on certain areas in Visakhapatnam. Of course, we have our challenges, but all these challenges can be met with. Now, probably, if you can't meet the challenges of tidal energies because of the wind speed, which I have done a lot of work on, you have the biomass. Start using biofuels. If you have the sea, in fact, the Bay of Bengal is known for its rich source as blue-green algae. Yeah? So that is the best source of biofuel. If you look at the 4 different areas, I don't want to get into biofuel as a source of energy, which is a huge area in itself. But then, if you could tap that, that's also a one-time investment for you to do this, use algae and come out with the oil, and which can be used for your automobile or also for domestic purposes. Now, if you were to use solar energy and other renewable energy sources, including bioenergy for public amenities, you still continue to use the cabling, your hydroelectric power for our domestic use. Then underground cabling is something which has to be made mandatory, because there are short circuits, live wire hazards, leverage, and in times of cyclonic weathers, we have a huge damage done. So to overcome all this, probably that would be the best solution. The third thing, S in the destiny, is sanitation. Okay, I can talk for 4 hours on sanitation. I don't want to do that now. But then source segregation of waste, reuse of solid waste, biomedical waste disposal as per the Cartagena Protocol, okay, where the PCB, the Pollution Control Board, is actually responsible for that. And of course, the 3R mantra, reduce, reuse, recycle. Yeah, so once we do that, I'm sure that we are midway through the destiny. And of course, we can use the services of the Naval Coast Guard and the GVMC, the PCB, the different NGOs, and of course, the citizens of country, of the state, of the city for that matter. The main concern we have as far as sanitization or sanitation, as we call it, is concerned, is sensitization and support for the cause, which is the biggest social stigma that I have been talking about. The T is transportation, bulk transport for lanes for the cargoes, enhance the rural-urban connectivity, metro rail infrastructure should be supported, multi-level parking, because that's the biggest challenge we have in Visakhapatnam. Come up with multi-level parking. Then paid parking in public spaces, like on the beach. We have the beach always with a lot of cars right from this end to end, that end. But try coming up with a paid parking system there. I'm sure we'll not have so many cars there. Yeah. And of course, you're going to have alley parking. And then you have air connectivity, which is of course something which I would envisage 10 years down the lane. Then of course IT-enabled services, we've got all our leaders talking about it, but then how effective it is, it's in our hands, because information kiosks are one thing which we do not have in Visakhapatnam. Probably we could just work on that. It's a very small app, or information kiosks in public places. Online payment systems, of course, they're pretty rampant now. Online grievance and redressal issues. And then smart policing with the CCTV 24/7 in all public places. And of course, you need to also come up with an online FIR, which is predominantly how the first information reports across the world are being lodged. N is network-centric organization, where we believe in network governance that explains increased efficiency and reduced problems. So we're going to network with different organizations which work in different areas. So let's know what we are doing. Let's not do everything. Let just not one person do everything. You need to allow others also to do, and use them as and when you need it. So we have a lot of, you have a network. It's just like like when you talk of the taproot system. Tap it when you have to. Tap it from everywhere. But then the main route remains. Yeah. And Of course, go for R&D activities, involve the institutions here. We have beautiful institutions like Andhra University, we have the Indian Institute of Management coming up, we have, of course, the Geetham University, we have the DSNLU, the Law University. Involve the younger generation, involve the youth, let them know that R&D is possible also in shaping your own city. And of course, why is you? So you govern the state. So you is the citizens, the traders, the armed forces, the foreigners, the locals, everybody who wants to call themselves a Vizag. And so all the tourists who come here should also be sensitized with the norms of the city. Probably then you know what is the sustainability in a smart city. This is my personal opinion again, and this is what I believe can change the destiny of this city if we were to follow these few suggestions, as I would like to put them. Thank you very much for the opportunity.